So I am the second oldest of 5 children. My older sister, she's Rachel. She is 3 years older than me. Then comes me, Tate, who's 3 years younger than me, Maverick, who's 4 years younger than me, and then Abby, who is the littlest one, 9 years younger than me. There is a lot of good things about having a big family. You can always go out and play sports together. You can go on a lot of family outings. So we've always been able to enjoy that, even though we all are very competitive sometimes, so that can get a bit messy. But we always do have a good time, and nowadays we're getting a lot better with sportsmanship, so that's a positive side. My parents, they're amazing. They have always been great examples to me. They grew up close to each other, I guess. My dad grew up in Las Vegas, and my mom grew up in Utah. They met at BYU, as is common. But they have raised us to have a good appreciation of hard work. And even though we haven't had too many hard chores like some people have, we always had our duties to wash the dishes and pick weeds, and we never really got off on that. Dad would try to teach us piano, and we normally get off of that by high school because we want to play sports or whatever, and he's pretty chill. But he would always make us practice before playing video games or whatever, and they both always helped us see that the right answer was hard work and helping each other. My parents, they never forced us to go to church. They did give us an option. They said, yeah, okay, you want to stay home? That's fine. But if you stay home, you have to clean the whole house. So they did give us our agency, though they did give us an option that no one ever took. So we always went to church. So that was definitely great. My older sister, she was always a great example to me. She is a great example to me of gospel diligence. She's always had a great testimony, and she kind of made it cool, I guess, to do the right things, because I always looked up to her. When she was a senior, I was a freshman, and seeing her example just in that 1 year together in school has just helped me so much. Tate and Maverick, I love them to death. They're kind of crazy, though. We've gotten in some decent fights, but we always have a good time. We always can find common ground with sports and video games, especially volleyball. Abby, she's just the baby of the family. I don't think she'll ever grow out of that, but hopefully she can start acting like an adult at some point. So growing up, I was a pretty temperamental child. My parents always told me how easily I got angry and mad at things, which is not hard to believe. I did have a pretty short temper. I remember that I vaguely remember, and then they're telling me the story helps me remember even more, is when they would try to discipline me. I would do something that I shouldn't have, and they would go and they would say, spank me or whatever. But it wouldn't have any effect to a point. I just let them do it. I was that stubborn, and they just gave up on it. It just didn't work. So they found other means. They helped me see that it's not really worth it. I'm pretty sure I might have spent one night on sitting at the kitchen table because I wouldn't eat my food, and they would just leave us there until we ate it. And they didn't heat it up. You didn't get to eat it tomorrow. If they were merciful, they would actually put it in the fridge and let you eat it the next day. But you still had to eat it before eating anything else. But I was really stubborn, so they're very happy that I chose to be stubborn on the good side of things eventually. My mom always says that she always knew that I was a determined person, that what I did end up choosing would be the end of it. I wouldn't go back on it. And her perspective has helped me see that is something that I value, determination and sticking to things. And once I saw what was good in life, I stick with it. I'm sticking with it. So I loved Hercules as a little kid, the Disney movie, and that was my favorite. I would make my parents and my siblings watch it with me hundreds of times over and over. Still love the movie, still great. I was kind of accident prone. I got hurt a few times, but nothing too serious. Once we were climbing at Red Rock. I think I must have been 9 maybe, and I got stuck somewhere too high for me to come down, and everyone was down. My family was there. They're like, oh, we're trying to help, And then there were people walking by, and as I said, I was pretty short-tempered, and they were all, "Are you all right?" I didn't even want to look at them. I was like, "Get away! I don't want your help." I was like calling them names. I was like, "You idiots!" It was pretty bad. But my family always likes to tell anyone, friends of mine, even people I barely know that they just met, they'll probably bring it up somehow. So that's one of their favorite stories of my early childhood. My dad, he has worked most of his life in finance. He was working for Marriott hotels, and that's what he did for a majority of the time while I was growing up. He worked for doing financial work, accounting and such for Marriott hotels. And so I was born in Utah. I stayed a little bit there, but then we moved to Oklahoma for also not too long. It was just my sister and I. I don't really remember Oklahoma, so it couldn't have been that long. I think I was about 2 years old. Then we moved back to Utah for a few years to be by my mother's family, and also again because of my dad's job, of course. I stayed a little bit there, and then we ended up in California, where I remember vaguely because we stayed at a hotel for some time while our house was being finished, because my dad, he had the hookups and all with Marriott, so we were staying there while our house was being finished. And I felt like, you know, Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. I was riding my scooter down the hill by the palm trees and up and down in the glass face elevator. It was a great time. I remember that. I don't really remember our house when it did get finished. We didn't actually stay that long there because, once again, my dad's job had us moving. So after a while in California, I think I only went through first grade there, we moved to Las Vegas, where my dad was raised. So then he got a job there, and we were in Vegas. And I remember second and third grade, and fourth grade actually, 3 years about in Las Vegas. We were in Summerlin. I remember being able to go to family dinners with my dad's family, with my cousins, eating good food. The huge, I don't know, my Aunt Laurie Colliker's house. I remember going there a lot, playing with their huge stash of toys that they had in the basement, and all those family dinners with my grandparents, my dad's family. It was always a good time. So we stayed there for a while until the final move came up. My dad, the biggest relocation yet, we were going to be relocated to Florida. So my whole life I'd lived on the West Coast. We'd all been used to, I mean, even though we weren't necessarily in the same state, we were close to our extended family. So going to the other side of the country was something kind of crazy for us. But my sister and I, we were more concerned about the realistic dangers of this move, as in alligators and hurricanes, and sharks, of course. So we kind of made a whole argument, a huge argument about it. We had paper, we had, I don't know if we had a huge deal made up. We had it all in writing. We were telling our parents, there is no way we're going to Florida. We are going to die. That was literally our mentality with the move. We obviously didn't understand that there was also Disney and Universal Studios and good stuff there, but we only saw hurricanes, alligators, snakes, sharks. We thought it was just a death trap. We were basically not going to make it if we moved there. Obviously, that did not convince my parents, and we ended up moving. So our last move, and where we've stayed since, is in South Florida, the city of Wellington. Once we got into Florida, my first memory of getting to Florida was getting off the plane, not even outside. In the airport, I just felt the humidity. The air was just so thick. I just breathed it in. I was like, wow, that's heavy. And it was sticky and humid, and I wasn't necessarily a negative experience, but I was kind of like, wow, this is different. We got to our house, we got moved in, got settled, and it was an interesting first few weeks. I don't know, if you know Florida, you know that there are animals everywhere. When you walk around outside, it doesn't matter if you're in this urban area, if you're in suburbs. We live in a community called Olympia, which is a suburban gated community, which, it's full of those in South Florida. But so, and it's got beautiful lakes all throughout the community. In the backyard, there's like a grassy area that leads down to a lake. You're not supposed to swim. I'll get to why, and it's just beautiful. So we're like, oh, okay, this isn't so bad. Until in the bathroom, in the sliding glass doors, on the ceiling, everywhere, we just start finding lizards and frogs. They're just pervasive. And, first things were just, ew, these animals. And I'm not a very daring person when it comes to animals. I never really have been, but I was just terrifying. Just you're in a bathtub, or you're in the shower, and you think you're safe, but no. Then you see a lizard on the ceiling, you just freak out, and you get a towel on, you throw some clothes on, you run downstairs. And our strategy, what we did is we had these, those big cups that you get from gas stations, those like huge big gulp cups, those reusable ones. And what we'd do is we'd catch them under it, the lizards and or with a frog or whatever, and then you put a piece of paper and you carry it outside. So that became a very frequent practice for us as we were moving into our home. So we would, chase the lizards all around with these big gulp cups, and a lot of times you'd cut their tail off, and oh, that's disgusting. But yeah, so no one ever really wanted to do that, but that was one of the chores that hadn't been used in the past, but now started to be part of our routine, was lizard catching. So that was fun. Getting to Florida was great, being able to go to the beach all the time. The weather was phenomenal. It's a really peaceful place. It was hard to get used to it, but once we did, it was great. So we moved in when I was in 5th grade. I didn't know anybody, and a short story is right when I was moving in, another person was moving into the same class. His name was Lance Lin. He was moving from a bit farther away. He was moving actually from China, and he didn't really speak English. He didn't have any friends. I mean, I didn't have any friends either, so, we kind of got put together by circumstance, and it was just a great experience, being able to help someone get not just involved in a class or in a school, but also in a community, in a culture. I didn't feel like I was doing that much. I'd talk to him, I'd be with him. I didn't know half the things he was saying at the beginning, he didn't even speak English. We'd communicate through gestures and such, but we got each other because we were both new, and we're kind of on the outside of things. So getting to know him better, slowly seeing him learn English and the American culture, it was just a really cool experience to be able to help him. My mom would always pack 2 peanut butter jelly sandwiches, and she thought I could eat that for some reason. I mean, I don't have that big of an appetite. I didn't, at least. I do now. And I would just give him one of them, And we stayed friends. We've stayed friends till today. He's one of my closest friends. I was able to help him transition to America, and he was able to help me transition to Florida, I guess, even though we were both coming from the outside in. And he's just an amazing person. I really respect him for always keeping with it. It would have been really hard for me. I learned later, as I went to a different country to live for 2 years, that it is just a different world. It's not just a different language. It's not just slightly different system of education, or people are just completely different all over the world. And being able to pass that barrier, to be able to extend your hands and help people to feel wanted, to feel accepted, it was just an amazing experience. So elementary school, and then I went across the street to middle school. Emerald Cove was the first graduating class to go through 6th, 7th, and 8th grade in that middle school. I loved it. It was fun. Pirates, I don't have any negative experiences, really. Just the growing up, casual stuff, Say dumb things, do dumb things. Not too dumb. I didn't get in that much trouble. My parents might say something else, but pretty sure I was okay. And so, yeah, my middle school years were fun. And then I got to high school. High school was great. I loved it. I slowly started coming out of my shell because I didn't ever consider myself very shy, but I wasn't that outgoing person that would go up and talk to people. But my freshman and sophomore year, I started to, talk more openly, care less about what people thought, and started to realize that people actually like me, and it's a very humble thing to say, but it's just, I realized that I could be myself around people, and it wasn't the end of the world. You're not vulnerable when you do that. It's quite the opposite. You're showing that you're confident in who you are, and that's something that I slowly started developing over my first few years of high school, and once I got to be a junior and senior, I just probably did talk too much, honestly. Still do that sometimes. But I played volleyball and cross country. I ran cross country because Rachel, my older sister, suggested it. To this day, I cannot tell you why I stayed, except for the people. Because really running in the hot sun for miles on end with really not anyone cheering you on besides your parents, and they're just there one part of the course for 3.5 miles, or 3.1 miles, sorry. And it was just impressive to see the dedication of these runners. Because you're not getting glory. You're not getting all the attention that some of the bigger sports of basketball or football will get, but you see that a lot of the people who would run cross country were great students. They were great people because they know how to dedicate themselves for the right reasons. And that's something that it taught me, a discipline beyond just so people can see. There's a really deep principle to that. It's really doing your best, giving your all, so you can see how well you can do. You're doing it for yourself, and it helps you see your potential. And cross country really gave me that opportunity. Volleyball, on the other hand, was just for fun. I loved it. It was also, I'm just kidding, they did teach me principles as well. I learned how to be coachable a lot more. Cross country, there was great coaching. I had a wonderful coach, Lisa Golo. She was amazing. She helped me in a lot of aspects of my life, dedication being the primary one. She is one of my role models. I am very glad to have met her and have been able to be coached by her for at least 3 years. And now for volleyball, I never really played volleyball before high school, seriously. And once I started, I haven't stopped. It is the most fun game. I love it so much because it's not something that, I don't know, you don't get hurt as much, I guess. In basketball, I get hurt all the time. I just roll your ankle, and it still happens in volleyball. I mean, don't get me wrong. But what I want to get at is that I just could enjoy it, and I could play well, and I enjoyed being able to jump and run and compete. And there are also great people around you. In volleyball, there weren't, some of the people that you'll find in other sports that are just focused on sports. These people have perspective. That's another reason I enjoyed playing volleyball at Palm Beach Central. It was just great experience, great people. I learned a lot about not just volleyball, but how to be a good teammate, how to work with people, how to just enjoy it. There are times when you're on the bench and you're like, I want to be in the game. This is ridiculous. I'm wasting my time. But you're not always going to be, in the front there. But as long as you're doing your part, you're doing the right thing. So that's one of my biggest takeaways from volleyball too. It was moving into the ward, you slowly get to know everybody. What was so great is it was the Wellington ward at the time, and there was a ton of youth. So it was perfect for a family of 5 kids growing up where there's a ton of other people, I mean, I guess when you look at the schools and the percentages, it wasn't as much as somewhere out here, or Utah or Idaho or Arizona, but compared to the other areas in Florida, it was great. The youth was huge. Always would go and have fun on scout trips, high adventures. We went to sea base, we sailed down the Keys, we did a ton of things. It was just a blast. And there's a great group of friends, Maverick Watson, Morgan Rhodes, Connor Hunt, Jace Candair, just name dropping here. But we just had a great time, and I was able to learn a lot of things. But I think my biggest learning was two things, I guess, on the church, side of things when I was a teenager was EFY and when the wards split. So first I'll talk about EFY. So when I was 14, I went for the first time, you know. You go and went to St. Petersburg, went with my sister and, you know, some other people from the ward. We drove up, long drive, like 5 hours. We get there and, you know, I was still a little shy. It was before my freshman year, so I was still pretty much in the bubble that I put around myself. So I was there, you know, tentative. I didn't know anybody in my company or whatever, so just kind of I joked. I kept to myself mostly though, but I slowly, you know, I need to give the spiritual messages. I like that. I'd go to the dance. It's, you know, I'd kind of get out of my shell. I'd dance. It'd be fun. The first time, but I was kind of low-key still. And then, I don't know what happened after that. The next time, I was just going for it. I had a great time in St. Petersburg once again. I just let myself have fun, you know. I just went for it. I joked. I laughed. I was myself. And spiritually also, I got a ton out of it. I think that's kind of where it started, that I started realizing what I knew. Because growing up in the church, in the gospel, you know these things, you know, you learn them since you're a kid, you know, primary, all the songs, everything. You learn these principles, the plan of salvation, the Book of Mormon, Joseph Smith, the importance of the restored gospel, all these things, you've got them in your head since you're like 8 years old. But what I started to realize is kind of what these things mean. And it was still very limited knowledge. It started to enter more into my heart. And I probably just made a noise when I tapped the microphone, but it was something that started to become real to me. It wasn't just, you know, church. It was just always been a part of my life, but I didn't realize that it was for me. It was there, but not here. So I loved my second time. Then for my third and fourth times, I went to BYU. I came out here to Provo. I went to Brigham Young University to do the FY with Jace Kander. We were roommates for 2 years, and we had Chad Burton, I think is his last name, for our counselor, and it was just a blast. I learned so much, and I had so much fun. I could truly say at that EFY that I knew Jesus Christ lived, and that's almost always during testimony meeting when you have those really strong moments, and I knew that he was not just this figure. He wasn't just this name that you see in the scriptures. He was real. He is my brother. It hit me. I could feel his presence, his love. And for, you know, 15, 16-year-old kids, like, whoa, dude, was this real? It was huge. It wasn't a voice or vision. It was just a feeling, and it was amazing. And that started me on my way. And the next year at EFY, I was back with Jace again. I stuck with the younger group, I think. I don't know. I think we were in the 16, 17 at this point. But, and we were Chad again, so we just got lucky. It just happened that way. But I just enjoyed it. EFY, I'd recommend anyone to go. I probably want to be a counselor still. But it's just a way to have fun in a, you know, kind of carefree environment that still, you know, gives you that perspective. It's really hard to get youth's attention in a way that will actually penetrate, a way that they'll remember, and they won't just think of it as a lecture, because we separate fun and church in our minds pretty normally. So that was the big thing for me that kind of tore down that barrier, that made church cool, I guess, that made it something I was really interested in. And my testimony was still very limited. I didn't know a ton, but it really got me thinking about things. Growing up, I had my close friends in the ward. I had, you know, Maverick, Morgan, Connor, Boston, and Jace until he moved. He left us for Linden, Utah. So that was kind of sad to see them go. And the families would come in and out. Florida's a really transient place. But I realized near the end of my high school career that I wanted to have friends kind of my age. I guess, you know, Maverick and Morgan they're my age. Connor But some of them moved, others, they were busy, and we went to different schools. So I started hanging out a bit more with my school friends, which I wouldn't do as much because, I don't know, I felt like there's a separation, like friends from church are who you can hang out with outside of school hours or whenever you want. But friends from school, stay at school. And that was a mentality that I kind of had. I didn't really know why, but so I started hanging out with Lance Lin, Joel Chung, and Cameron Wallace, especially. We became really close, especially my senior year. We call ourselves, I don't know what we called ourselves, but it was a pretty funny little group of people. We had a Chinese guy, and a guy who was Indian, and a black guy. So we had these four different races all together in one friend group. It was pretty cool in pictures and stuff. We took these joking pictures before graduation, like all shaking hands, looking like the United Nations. We just have a great time because we have common interests. We're really similar people. We all have perspective. We know what we want in our lives, and they're just great people. They're just great guys, and even though they aren't members of the church, it was just, I get along with them, and it was just super fun to be able to have them. And we still hang out we've hung out since I got back from my mission. We still keep in touch. It's great having them. Right before going on my mission, I met one of my best friends ever, Lauren Boyks. She moved into the Wellington ward. The wards had split. So the wards had split, and she was in the other ward. I stayed in the Royal Palm Beach ward while my dad was made bishop, and so there was literally no youth. So that was kind of another trial. I had no real friends, I guess. We had the Hunts for a little while until they moved out. But it was crazy because Lauren was in the same building for almost a year before I even ever talked to her. It was the summer of 2014, right before going on my mission. I had my call. I got it to Brazil, São Paulo West. I got it, and I flew out to Utah to open it because I wasn't going to go. It was the general conference weekend. My family was all out there. I was going to stay for prom. But I flew out there. They had to be there. My mom was like, no, I need to be there. So I flew out, opened it, came back. So this was in first week of April that I had my call. And then fast forwarding back, running around a bit, probably getting confused, sorry. But back to June or July when we had youth conference. And, I started talking to Lauren a little bit. She'll probably say that she talked to me, but we'll leave that for history to decide. So we started talking, and then, with Connor was there too, and it was kind of a group. We just had fun. We started getting to know each other better, and they're like, oh, wow, And you find out she lives in the neighborhood across the street, and that was right before I was going on my mission. I had a month maybe left before going out. And, most of my friends were gone on missions already, or they were busy at school already, and I was the only one just sticking around, just waiting to leave. So, but Lauren, school hadn't started for high school, so she's a few years younger than me. So I was started inviting her to do stuff. So we started hanging out all the time, and we became really close in the last month before going out before my mission. And then she wrote me the whole 2 years, email, letters. She even sent a little package one time. It was just really great to have someone, back home supporting you. And we just became really naturally good friends. It was just kind of effortless, really. We had the same perspective. The gospel is the most important thing to us. And we're both pretty sarcastic and like to make fun and joke, so it was pretty easy to hit it off, and we've just had a great time ever since. We're still great friends. And Jace is getting back from his mission soon, so we're going to keep that friendship going. We're all still friends. I've just had great people around me my whole life, and it's been amazing. Okay, so I got my call to São Paulo, Brazil, and I went to the São Paulo MTC. So there wasn't that kind of little buffer of, let's fly you out to Utah and we'll drop you off at the door. The day that I was called to go to the MTC, the day my flight was, that was bye. So saying goodbye to the fam, it wasn't too bad. I remember the last day before leaving, we were kind of laid out the door as usual in my family, actually. But we were rushing, my mom was finishing this little scrapbook for me. I'm really glad she finished it. But I was like, can she finish it already? And so we're running out the door. I need to get out of here. I need to go. I'm so ready to go. Saying goodbye to everyone was pretty, not too bad. I almost cried once. And that was only when I was saying goodbye to Abby. Saying goodbye to everyone else wasn't too bad. I was kind of, I don't know, mentally prepared, or they kind of were ready to, so we were all on the same page. But then Abby, she was going to school before my flight, so I wasn't going to see her. And she just hugs me, and she just starts crying. And she just can't stop crying. And I was like, oh, no. And I was like, you are going to get me. I came this close. I didn't cry. It was really close. She was just my little, my little favorite little sister for a long time. Favorite little sister, Rachel. Okay. But yeah, I love her to death. It was hard to say goodbye to all of them, especially her though. But once I got on the plane, I said, I'm going to start reading Jesus the Christ. I'm going to be a super mission. I fell asleep super fast. After even opening the book, I read like maybe 10 pages, and I closed, and I was like, yeah, that's not happening. So make the connection in Atlanta, start coming down to São Paulo. Long flight. I slept pretty much the whole way. I know other people were restless and anxious, and I couldn't sleep at all. And I was like, dude, I was out. I hadn't slept much before. We had prepared very well and spent the whole night packing, so I kind of procrastinated that, mostly on my fault, completely my fault. My mom was the one that did most of the packing in the end, actually. Great family. Anyway, get to the MTC. It's just full of people. I mean, it's a lot smaller than Provo. I'd never been to Provo, so I just assumed this is how it was. And just getting in the plane, getting into our room, I was just getting off the plane, getting into our room at the MTC, excuse me, and I was just, whoa, I'm in Brazil. You'd look outside and talk to Elder da Silva, Devin da Silva. This is funny, I'll talk about him in a second, but we were just looking at each other like, my companion and I were just, I don't believe it, we're here. Like, it doesn't feel like we're here, like, it doesn't feel different, like we're expecting it to feel different or something. I don't know what we were expecting, but it was weird. And the MTC was great. Elder da Silva, he's from New Mexico. His dad is from Rio Grande do Sul. He was a Brazilian, his dad, and his mom was American. They served together back in the day. That's how they met. And then after their missions, they started dating and got married. But Elder da Silva, my companion, never was taught Portuguese. Somehow that slipped. So he looks Brazilian, has the most common Brazilian last name ever. And so in the MTC, it was really funny. We'd just walk around and they'd start, talking in Portuguese to him, and he'd be like, singing. He had no idea what they were saying. He picked it up quick, but it was just funny because he was Brazilian, but not at all. MTC was great. District of 12, all American guys. We just had fun times. We had so many laughs, and we had a great time. What we should have done better was actually study Portuguese. That kind of slipped somehow. We'd talk in English way too much, but we had a great time. Still friends with them. And most of them went to São Paulo West with me. So we had a good time. We learned a lot. Irmão Barros was our instructor. He was great. And Irmão Melo. We just learned a lot. It was kind of a reality check. It still wasn't quite real. I didn't feel exactly like I was on a mission yet. And the learning was a lot slower than I think we all wanted it to be. We were all just ready to get in the field, basically. So that's kind of my MTC experience. Loved it. Playing sports especially was great because in the field, my mission did not allow that. So we enjoyed that. So I get in the field. My first area is Caxingui. My companion, my trainer, is Elder Albuquerque. He's from Rio de Janeiro. He's a great guy, didn't speak any English, and I was actually on my mission at that point. I felt it, no handicap, no one to help you. I lived with an American elder, Elder Jacobson, so he helped me a bit with the stuff when we were home, but out in the streets, it was all Portuguese, and I just remember walking around with a pulsing headache all the time just because, I can't understand the majority of what anyone's saying, and the things I do understand, I don't understand how they connect because I don't understand the words in the middle. So, I'd pick out like, family, cat. The family have a cat? Is it a family of cats? I don't know. So that was basically the struggle. In my first few months, it was hard. The culture is just so different. People in Brazil are just very personable. They're very in your face, kind of, not in the bad way. What I'm trying to say is we're kind of stoic and distant in the United States, even more so in Europe. But in Brazil, it's like there's no boundaries, Hi, I just met you, we're best friends, let's hug. And it's great. They're such a friendly people. They're very accepting. But that was just so different than what I've been used to. Not that I consider myself a nice, friendly person, but, that's the next level. It's a different thing in Brazil. So slowly getting used to the language, it's slowly picking it up. The area, my first area was really difficult because, it was a city right by the temple. Everyone had already heard of the church, and if they weren't baptized already, it's like, I don't want to be. So we had serious struggles in the first area, but I was learning. Reading back in my journal, I see it was a really positive experience because I would always, keep the faith. I was like, I can do this. I'm not worried. I got this. The Lord will provide. And that's a mentality that I think is hard to maintain sometimes because when we're not faced with trials, we just seem, life's fine. I don't really need to depend on God, but we always need to. And I definitely learned how to depend on Him in the difficult times, but also to go back and remember Him in the best of times as well, and the successes. So the food wasn't actually that exotic as I was expecting. I was expecting, I don't know, brains and monkey and crazy stuff, but it was pretty mellow. I was a really picky eater growing up. My mom always said, eat your salad, and I would say no because I don't want to eat it. I don't like it. I wouldn't have eaten it. I didn't eat it before, but I just said I don't like it because I didn't want to like it because I was stubborn, going back to that. But my mom was like, hey, you're going to eat it on your mission. You're going to have to. So I was like, exactly. If I eat it on my mission, if I'm going to have to, why would I eat it now? Why would you force me now? So just a little sassy relationship we had back in the day. But so I get there. Turns out I actually love salad. So Mom, you were right. And the food, rice, beans, chicken, meat, Brazilian food is one of the best things ever. And I just fell in love with it pretty easily, and it wasn't hard for me to eat everything on my plate, though I did eat a lot and gained about 10 kilos my first couple transfers. I lost it all again, but yeah, I got some chubby cheeks at the beginning, so it was fun. It was a great time. When people get their mission call to Brazil, at least what I had imagined was, jungle or Rio de Janeiro, like beach, or at least, a ton of trees or something. And I get to São Paulo, and my first area is Caxingui, and it's just the middle of this huge city. And I kind of knew that São Paulo was like one of the largest cities in the world, but it didn't really register that, so that means no jungle. Oh, dang it. So yeah, I was kind of, not disappointed, but I was just, I didn't expect this. And that's kind of the impression all Americans have kind of with Brazil. It's like, it's the jungle. But, so my first area, let down, still loved it. But then I get to my second area, Ibiúna. It's what they call the interior, which is, I guess we call it countryside. But it's just way outside of the city, ranches, farm towns, and this is what I call the real Brazil. This is what I was expecting when I opened my call. Dirt roads, pass out into the middle of nowhere, houses scattered who knows where. We'd ride buses for hours and still not be out of our area. It was like 45% of our mission was this area. It was enormous. And I just stayed there for 6 months, 4 transfers in Ibiúna, and I just loved every minute of it. There were so many amazing people there. The members, it was a branch, it was really small, the church in that area, a huge area, small membership. But there were so many experiences where my faith was tested and miracles happened. Out on bus stops, in the middle of the night, no, we're not outside in the middle of the night, but 9:30, right when we needed to go to home, we needed to be home already. We'd be at a bus stop 45 minutes to an hour away from our house, our apartment. And we'd just be sitting there. The bus comes maybe every hour. And we have no idea when the last one had come by. So we're just there, just waiting on a bus stop. This is not just once, this is a ton of times. Just waiting out, Virava, as it was called, the neighborhood especially. That place was so far. We'd ride like an hour on a bus, and then you'd walk 15 minutes to get to the person's house. Super far. But there's so many times that we were just walking or we were waiting at a bus stop, and a car would just, I don't suggest doing this here in America or really anywhere unless you're a missionary and you feel the Spirit, but cars would just stop and they'd say, "Hey, are you going to the center of the city?" "Yeah, we are. You want a ride?" We totally just accepted the free rides. We felt that it was okay. And you would pray, "Please bless that the bus comes," or that somehow we can get home. And it wasn't always that, but it was just every time. There was not once the Lord went without sending something. And we could see that it's like, oh, it's coincidence. Cars, they're nice people. The bus, of course, it's going to come. But it wasn't. It was just so inexplicably connected to our prayers and random places where we were. There's no way that anyone knew we were there. Car would come by. "Do you need a ride?" "Yes, please." It was just a ton of miracles. And I got to know what I called the real Brazil out in the jungle, walking out, your shoes would get so muddy every day. But I just enjoyed it. I ate a lot of good food, met a ton of great people. I just enjoyed every minute in Ibiúna and the real Brazil. There are a ton of stories from my mission, and I probably should record all of them, but no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to focus on a few of the convert stories that stick out to me in particular. And the first one, I guess we'll go chronologically, was Família Chagas. So I was on splits, I was on exchanges, whatever you call those in English, divisões, with the district leader, or I think it might have just been an elder that I lived with, an Argentinian guy from Patagonia, Elder Sanchez, J. Sanchez, and we were walking in this neighborhood that we had recently opened. There hadn't been missionaries there really. It was just an area that didn't have any references or referrals or contacts, so we just went there and started doing contacts, and we were there at night one day, and there's this pretty tall, young guy walking by. He's a teenager. And Elder Sanchez stops him. He's like, "Hey," he does the contact. He's like, "Hey, would you like to know more about Jesus Christ? We're missionaries, blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "Yeah, totally." And just a normal contact. We're just like, "Oh, not." Yeah, but this elder, he was pretty determined. He'd get appointments every time. And he's like, "Oh, tomorrow, we're going to come by. Is that okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, I think so. I'll invite my mom, blah, blah, blah." I didn't think anything of it. So we get there. My companion and I, the next day, Elder Childs. And it's Viviane, his mom, and Nicholas, and I think maybe the other kids were there, Hobridge and Sophia. So there were 4 kids. Guilherme might have been there too. So yeah, there were 4 kids, and the mom was there. And so we taught, I think, the restoration, the first lesson, just basic, and we invited them to church. And the first week, only Nicholas and Hobridge went. Nicholas and Guilherme, I think, actually, yeah. So 14-year-old and 7-year-old. So they both went, and they loved it. And the mom couldn't go, and the dad, we hadn't even met the dad at the time. Mom couldn't go for whatever reason, and then the 6-year-old, the 7-year-old, he comes, Guilherme, and he says to his mom, the next lesson we're there, and they're all together, and he says, Mom, you got to go to that church. They have this little bread there. It is so good. Just the way he said it, and it was just so cute and so funny. It just, tem esse pãozinho tão gostosinho. And his mom, we all just laughed about it, but he was so pure, and he felt it. He realized that he didn't know exactly what it was. He didn't understand that it was a sacrament, what it meant, really, but he knew it was good. And that was the first experience we had. And then over the weeks, we got to talk finally with Alexandre, the father, and they weren't married. So they weren't married, living together with 4 kids, which is actually very common in Brazil. No one gets married because the government doesn't really encourage it, because they give social status, basically on even terms. If you just live together for a certain amount of time, you have a stable union, I think they call it, and it's recognized. But anyways, so they hadn't been married. Alexandre, the dad, had wanted to get married for a long time, but Viviane was like, no, we don't need to do it in however many years. It's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be money. And so they just had put it off. And to get baptized, they obviously needed to get married. So we pushed, we talked about marriage so many times. We're like, I know you're tired of hearing this, but you have to do it. It's a commandment. It's, you need to be baptized, so please get married. And they would read the Book of Mormon. And that's how I knew that they were going to go forward. They would really keep all their commitments, but especially reading the Book of Mormon. And when one time, Alexandre, the dad, he was there for one of the first times he was there almost, one of the first times. And, I think he asked to say the prayer at the end. I'm like, of course, yeah. So he says it, and he just breaks down crying at the end. He had been working a lot. He's a great dad, but he wasn't very present because of his work, because he was working for his family, that kind of conundrum, like, if I don't do this for them, they'll have nothing. So I'm doing it out of love, but at the same time, I'm not giving what's more valuable, which is my time. And he came to that realization. The Book of Mormon and the church helped them see the importance of family and what's really important within a family, within family life. Being together, doing simple things, loving one another, and teaching your children what's important, teaching them about God and about Christ and the commandments. And they kind of all were baptized staggered. First Nicholas, and then Hallbridge, and then the couple was baptized after I had already been transferred. But they were amazing. They stayed strong, and on the last week of my mission, I got to I went to go to the temple, because that family was sealed. The only one I saw on my mission, the only sealing I've ever been to so far, of Alexandre, Viviane, Robert, Nicholas, Sophia, and Guilherme. They were there over the altar, the parents in white, and to see their 4 little kids come in, well, Nicholas is that little, but the rest of them, all in white, it was just the best way to end my mission. I just gained so much more of a testimony of the power, of the sealing power, and of the temple in general. It was a blessing to see them sealed. And I asked her after, when we went back, why did you stay? I saw so many people leave the church. Why did you stay? She said, there's a lot of times that I thought about leaving, but I just couldn't. Because it's not worth it to leave. It's worth losing everything if we get that eternal reward. And she just had that perspective, and her family did, and they lived by it. And that was the difference. So that was the Chagas family. I'll I'll just say one more because I'm using a lot of time. But so Lucy was Peruvian, is Peruvian. So we were in Paraisópolis, this huge favela, which is slum area. And so we were at church one time, and this guy shows up with his girlfriend. And he says he's a member, he's been an actor for a long time, and they're both Peruvian. And she was, curious about the church. So we mark an appointment, we go and we visit him. And Lucy, it turns out, was the one who had dragged Ricardo, her boyfriend, back to church, who he hadn't gone in years, since he'd moved to Brazil, really, because of certain reasons. He's a great guy, but he'd just fallen away. And she was just that golden investigator. Honestly, I felt like we just showed up, we taught her the lessons, and she did it. It was honestly simple as that. She wanted to know, so we told her. And she didn't just want to know, she wanted to do it. She read the Book of Mormon on her own. She gained a testimony of it. She was baptized within 2 weeks. And she's still strong in the church because it was always her doing it. So that was the coolest, one of the coolest experiences for me, seeing someone already prepared. And there were countless other experiences on my mission that were just life-changing, or helped me see just the Lord's hand. The church started becoming cool back at EFY or whatever, but it became everything. It is everything. Not that you have to spend your whole life in the church or just doing church callings. No, the Lord understands we're here to learn a lot of things, not just directly related to the Bible or the Book of Mormon or the Gospel, but it's the perspective, it's the priority that I learned on my mission that has helped me become who I am today. That this gospel is true. These aren't just words. It's something, it's conviction that I have. It's something that's inside of me that no one can take away. It's only something that can be removed by me choosing to leave it. And I pray that that never happens, and I will work so that it never happens. It's a continual process. We would go to so many inactives on our mission. We'd be like, how did you leave? It's because they just stopped working. Work is something that always has to be going on. So I served my 2 years in Brazil, in São Paulo. I loved it. I had great companions, amazing mission president, José Luis da Guerço, and Rosane, his wife. They were just great examples to me. They taught me the importance of the temple specifically. They would have us go every transfer, and that just helped me develop an even stronger testimony and the importance of it. If I hadn't gone so much, I doubt I would have had the importance, known so much about the temple, and really had it as a priority in my life. So I got back in July of 2016, and that was a long flight back home. I made I felt it unnecessary. Flew from São Paulo straight to New York, and then I went down to Florida. So they gave me a few extra hours of flight time there just for fun, just to, tantalize, I guess. But then I finally got home, and my parents were there. My whole family was there, Colton and Rachel, and my new nephew, Kaysen, who I hadn't known yet, I hadn't met. He was born while I was on my mission. He was already 1 at the time. It was super cool meeting him and seeing everyone again. And I got back and transition. Hardest part was probably just speaking English again, I'd trip over words, I'd forget how to say certain things, I'd try to throw Portuguese phraseology in there. I had an accent. They always made fun of me for that while I was trying to get back into English. So that was a little transition time. I had a few weeks of downtime, and then we went back to Brazil. My parents and I, we flew to Rio for the Olympics. So that was just a spectacular experience. We got to go see beach volleyball events, swimming events, women's gymnastics championships, saw the USA take the gold, and saw Michael Phelps swim, Ryan Lochte. We saw beach volleyball. USA unfortunately didn't do too good that year, but Brazil won, so I know they're my number 2 choice, so it was awesome. Just being in Rio, getting to know another part of Brazil, touring, seeing the Christ the Redeemer statue. It was funny, we'd ride around in taxis and stuff in the hotel, and my parents, we're all American, we all, we don't look Brazilian at all, we look American. And so they'd be, speaking their English that they know, and then I'd just be like, say something in Portuguese, and they'd be like, what? Why does this guy speak Portuguese? So then, you'd have that missionary opportunity. Oh yeah, I served my mission the past 2 years. I lived in São Paulo, blah, blah, blah. I think I added about 20 contacts, not that many, but I was like, I'm chalking these up. I'm still going. I'm still in missionary mode. So that was a great experience to be able to still be sharing the gospel when I went back to Brazil. And going to the Olympics was a, probably once in a lifetime experience that I will always remember. And especially to go with my parents, it's just great to show them a bit of Brazil first in Rio. And then we did go down to São Paulo, and we were able to see actually where I served. We went to Caxingui. No, we didn't go to Caxingui. Lied. We went to Campo Limpo, which was my last area, which I loved so much. I stayed there for 4 transfers too. We visited some of these deer families, these convert families, as well as these members. We went to their ward on Sunday, and we felt like celebrities there. Everyone wanted to take a picture with us. I'd been gone for like 3 weeks, and I'm already back in the ward. It was funny, and the bishop there, which is such a flattering thing, he just says in Portuguese, and I was translating for my dad, just, your son worked many miracles here. He really worked hard, and he did an amazing job. And just, this bishop was a serious dude. Like, you did not mess with him. So just to hear that from him, and we'd batted heads, not fought, but, I'd want to have a baptism on some day. Granted, most of them were just my poor planning, and he would, no, elder, we can't do that. So that was really good to hear from his mouth, such kind words. And then we went to lunch out in Ibiúna, Rio, Brazil, and it was just amazing because we got to eat with the branch president on his little, I don't know what we'd call it, kind of a ranch-ish. It's like this house out in not the woods, the kind of woodsy area, out in the countryside, just nice. Like, he has horses there, and there's trees, and just a beautiful area. We drove out and we destroyed the rental car, and we had to pay for some of the damages. But getting out there, I just got to eat lunch with them and Alexandre Viviani, their family. It was amazing to see my parents, meet them, and have this family that I love so much and was able to help come into the gospel. It was just a wonderful experience. And then, my Brazil trip was fun, to see a lot of people. Then I came back, we flew back, and not too many weeks later, I was going to school. Started at BYU. I'm here in my 2nd semester right now. First semester was a bit difficult, especially chemistry. Those are probably the hardest classes for me so far. The others aren't too bad. I love the religion classes. I love the fact that at BYU, everyone, for the most part, is on the same page morally. And this is the environment I always wanted. It's the only school I applied for, which in hindsight was probably not the best idea, but luckily the Lord allowed me to come here, and it's been amazing. My roommates are amazing. I love them all. I've met so many great people, made great new friends that will be friends for a long time. And I just am still deciding about a career. I am leaning heavily towards dentistry or orthodontics. Because of career exploration or career education classes in middle school, I did a project on orthodontics, and they make a lot of money and their hours are flexible. But the more I've looked into it, the more it seems a very feasible and good choice for the family that I want. My future family is the most important priority I have going forward. I'm not rushing to have one too much, but I want to prepare to be able to support them. I know that if I do have a career like orthodontics, I'll be able to do that. So I am deciding on a major also that will fit that. They'll prepare me for dental school. They'll prepare me for the career that I want. But I'm not stressing about it because the Lord has been so great about helping me, guiding me through these little steps, helping me find the way to make the right decisions. BYU is just an amazing place. It's full of spiritual experiences. The religion class I've been able to take Book of Mormon from Brad Wilcox, as well as Hank Smith this semester, and I've just learned so much. And the opportunities to serve, give blessings, they're just everywhere. And if you make it a priority to serve, you will have opportunities. And that's what I most love about BYU. And I've got a lot of stuff ahead of me. This is kind of, the biggest decision-making time of my life. But I'm going forth with faith. And that's the message the Lord's given me. I'm gotta learn more and more to be comfortable with uncertainty, because we're not always going to know what's going to happen, and that's something I'm still learning. I want to know everything, planned out perfectly, but it's not like that. I just want to help other people along my path, and I know that the Lord will help me. I kind of threw tidbits throughout this about my testimony, and the more I talk, the more I realize I didn't talk about, it's a life, there's a lot of things, and I'm only 20 years old. But the most important thing of all of this is my testimony, how it's developed and how it's grown. I first came to know that Jesus Christ was my Savior. I know that He lives. I know that He died for me personally and for all of us. That He did not only suffer for my sins, but also for all of the pain and anguish and mental problems or sadnesses of anyone. I know that through repentance, we can be clean. I am a personal witness of the power of repentance. I am nowhere near a perfect person. I have made many mistakes in my life, some serious, some not as much. But the Lord has always taken me back into His arms when I've repented sincerely. And I just am so grateful for the atonement, because it allows me to be who I am today. And it allows all of us to become better people, to become more like God, which is our purpose here on this earth. I know that Heavenly Father lives, and that He created all of this, and that He loves us, and He wants us to be like Him. He wants us to reach the celestial kingdom. The plan of salvation is perfect. We just need to do our best to find our path along it, following the steps. I know that Joseph Smith was a prophet, that he did restore Jesus Christ's church on earth. I have no doubts of that. I have asked God, and He has told me time and time again that these things are true. The Book of Mormon is the Word of God alongside the Bible. And all of the scriptures are true. Thomas S. Monson is a prophet today. The apostles, they are true witnesses of Jesus Christ. They have a perfect knowledge of His existence and His love. And as we follow the commandments we find in the scriptures, as well as in the modern counsels of the prophets and apostles, we will be happy. And we are that we might have joy. So we should definitely be seeking to follow these counsels. I'm grateful for my family. I know that we can be together forever if we all do our best to choose the right. And there are simple things that we must do. Praying, reading the scriptures, going to the temple, fasting, paying our tithing. We know these things. Simply doing them is what we lack most of the time. I know that this is the true church. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is Christ's one and only church on the earth, with the fullness of the gospel. All religions have pieces of the truth, but I know that this is His kingdom on earth. And I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.